and welcome back to Otaku no Video. As always, thank you very much for joining me for my review of Volume 1 of Kazuo Umetsu's The Drifting Classroom. Now, unfortunately, this is the first of 11 volumes in this horror manga, and boy is it horror. So this is entirely set up an introduction to the basic premise of the story, which is, without getting into any spoilers, the fact that this elementary school gets transported to, well, actually that is a spoiler, gets transported to a wasteland. And so the characters have to deal with that. And the main character is a sixth grade boy named Sho, who actually starts off the story having a altercation with his mother, and then this happens, so he's thinking back to all that stuff. Which is actually the nice thing, is that in this story that is definitely set up, we already get some drama and some, not quite character development, but some exploration of character in terms of Sho thinking about his life and how he's been acting and whether that has been appropriate or not. So that introspection really helps to hold this together as we're being introduced to this basic situation. Because this situation is treated with absolute realism. There's no more running water. The food is just the food that is there. They have to deal with the situation exactly as presented. Now, the art is very important in that, of course. Unfortunately, it's quite stiff. For some reason, manga of this time tended to be quite stiff, and characters are running in these very stiff poses. But the atmosphere and the way the whole thing is drawn is actually very normal. The elementary school is presented as a normal elementary school. That's part of the horror of it, is that you have this very safe setting that is now in this very unsafe environment, so it is now unsafe. So you have this contrast between this safe thing and this very unreal, very surreal, actually, environment. And that actually works very well for ramping up the horror and wondering what's going to happen next and how everyone's going to deal with this. I mean, the kids obviously are freaking out, and the adults are trying to handle all this, but even they are overwhelmed by all of this. I mean, if they're completely cut off, that's bad. So the artwork does manage to get across all of that, despite its stiffness. Now, the dialogue overall is pretty bland, to be honest, at least at this point. It's mostly people shouting and oh no, and very dramatic. Now, granted, this is about elementary school kids in this horrible situation. So there's a lot of drama, and this is a very, I would say, melodramatic kind of story. And it's very horrific. And that's, I think, the big stumbling block for this is some folks are going to have a hard time reading a manga about 10-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 11-year-olds going through really horrible things, very painful things, physically painful things, and so forth and so on. This is really, this can get really bad at times, especially from what I've read about later volumes. So that's going to turn some folks off, and I totally understand. This is horror, and fortunately, as we can see from these early sequences about Sho and his mother, it's clear that the story isn't being horrific just to be a horror story. It's there to deal with why characters behave the way they are, and to deal with questions of basic human dignity and how we behave and how we react in these situations, which is very, very cool and very important. So that's quite interesting, and I got to admit, I like to know where this goes, but I don't know that I really want to experience the rest of Drifting Classroom. It's just, it is hard to read this stuff, and it's clear that it's going to be some really bad things happening. So, anyway, all 11 volumes of The Drifting Classroom are available in English, released by Viz a couple of years ago, and readily available online, and so forth and so on. So you can certainly get it and read it. I will also point out that some of the horrific sequences and so forth are drawn with full detail. I mean, you get to see the exact, there's a lot of detail to those things. So it is that kind of a story. And I will give Umetsu full credit for the fact that it is dealing with that appropriately. But it is going to be kind of tough for some readers. So FYI. If you've read The Drifting Classroom or haven't and just want to talk about manga and anime, please stop by otakunovideo.net, where we have a forum and a chat room and all sorts of interesting places to talk about anime and manga in an intelligent way. So until next time, may all of your elementary schools stay firmly planted where they are.